Hello, welcome everyone to HLA's webinar. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Carla Byers-Mullen. I am the National Chapter and Membership Coordinator for HLAA and your host today. Today's presentation is an answer for Beethoven, Making Music with Hearing Loss in 2020 with Wendy Cheng. This presentation is being recorded and will be available for playback at a later time on the HLA website at hearingloss.org. I'm joined by additional HLA staff today. Amanda Watson is our meeting planner and will be facilitating question and answers portion of this webinar. Tim Browning, a digital communication and web specialist, is helping with technical issues in the chat box. I need to give you some technical tips to get started. Captions are available on the slide presentation on the purple bar below, so you do not need to enable subtitles. We recommend that you open your chat box and possibly move it away on your screen to avoid overlap of captions and chat messages. Please use chat for technical issues only. We ask you that you use the Q&A icon to ask questions. We will be using this feature to facilitate questions after the presentation. If you're joined by computer, you should be in side-by-side mode. You should be able to see the presentation on the left side and the panelists on the right. You can adjust your side-by-side view by clicking on the gray bar in between the two screens to your desired view. If you've joined by mobile device or phone, you will have a different view. You may have to scroll to get your desired one. Our presenter today is Wendy Cheng. She is the founder of the Association of Adult Musicians with Hearing Loss. AAMHL is a nonprofit member actually of HLAA, and Wendy herself is also an active member of HLA as well. And she is also a part of the local Montgomery County chapter in Maryland. 2 years after starting piano lessons, 7, Wendy was diagnosed with a bilateral significant hearing loss. She is a passionate amateur musician who wears bilateral cochlear implants, and she plays viola, piano, and hand bells. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Wendy. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Could we go on to the next slide, please? That's good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I often tell my audience that I lost my hearing when I was 9 years old. But the truth of the matter is no one really knows the exact day when I lost my hearing. It was diagnosed in the 3rd grade when I was participating in the hearing screening at school. They discovered the loss was profound on the right side and mild to moderate on the left side. At that time, I already had nearly 2 years of piano. I was fitted with an analog hearing aid in the left ear, and the right ear was never aided because the hearing aid dispenser thought aiding a profoundly deaf ear was not useful. Remember, this was back in the 1970s, and cochlear implants weren't available at that time. With the hearing aid, I heard piano notes a little bit better, and I dutifully took piano lessons for 7 years. My piano teacher had a classical background, so even today I prefer playing classical repertoire. I attended a string orchestra workshop during my junior year of high school, and I fell in love with the sound of orchestral strings. But everyone around me, especially my family, thought violin was too hard for someone with such a significant hearing loss. I did start violin lessons in college, and then I lost the remainder of my hearing in my mid-30s and received my first cochlear implant in 1997. It was one of those older body aids, if you can imagine. And then in 2010, I went bilateral. My cochlear implants are the Naida Q90 cochlear implants from Advanced Bionics. I really did like how my violin sounded on the higher note on the E string after wearing my first implant for 6 months. It sounded really, really tinny. So I decided to switch to viola instead. I have been playing on a smaller size viola for the last 10 years because my hands are also small. I fell in love with the sound of handbells about 5 years ago and have been ringing and even directing a handbell choir for the last 5 years. Next slide, please. There are so many properties of oral music to keep in mind when thinking about how to create the music, the beautiful music you hear. Rhythm and duration is the easiest because most hearing devices are very good at transmitting the rhythm of the music and telling you how long each note lasts. A tougher challenge is creating a beautiful tone with a sustained sound or even playing in tune. On an orchestral string instrument, you develop a kinesthetic sense of how much weight and pressure to put on the bow, to how much weight and pressure the bow needs to be on the string to create a nice sustained sound. To play in tune, I put black duct tape on the notes I don't hear well. I like to think that black tape on the fingerboard is fairly discreet. Next slide, please. Okay. And now for some show and tell. So I use a ComPilot, and normally the ComPilot here is connected to an assistive listening system. So what happened, I have this assistive listening system that has one receiver and up to 3 transmitters. So what I would do is I wear the receiver in lessons and I give my teacher one of the transmitters. If the teacher is accompanying me, then on the piano, then another transmitter goes on the piano. I've sat in orchestral situations where I would be playing in the viola section of an orchestra. So I'm wearing the receiver, and one transmitter goes to my stem partner, and the other transmitter will go to the conductor. So I do all this because, as many of you know, hearing loss severely affects your ability to hear over distances. The other thing I have tried is using the Rogers Select to participate in a group where everybody is closer to me, like say a string quartet. So that helps quite a little bit during string quartet rehearsals. Okay, let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to talk about I will talk about the mobile app I use. Okay, so up there on the screen, you can see there are the name of 3 apps. And let me see if I can sort of show them a little bit in here. Okay, so I have this app called Tunable. Let's see if you can see that. Okay, so Tunable, y'all notice Tunable provides a visual representation of what it's like to play in tune. As long as that virtual needle is, as long as the needle's in the green area, you're more or less playing in tune. So that's the first app I use nearly every day. And the second app I use is something called Tempo. It tells me what the time signature, you'll see on the bottom, there's a time signature. And then there are, for 4/4 time, there are 4 balls. And so it tells, and then you can note the speed of how fast you're going to play. So when you start when you start a time, you can hear both the visual and the aural cue for playing in rhythm. Ella is something I've just been playing with. I don't know if I can find it now, but oh, here it is. Okay, so the way Ella works is it's supposed to help you learn how to sing in tune. I don't sing very well, and I have horrible experience growing up participating in a choir. But I keep thinking, well, too many people like to sing. At least I should give it another effort at trying to learn to sing in tune. I know I can sing in tune with the piano. It's taken a while to get there with my implant to be able to sing with the piano. But still, I think my primary love is still my viola and maybe my handbells. Okay. Moving on to the next slide, please. So I'm often asked how to get back to playing music or how to get back to listening to music after getting cochlear implants. So I decided to put this slide up. I often give musicians who are new cochlear implant users these tips. Playing scales daily on the piano is important because it gives your brain the everyday practice in hearing what piano scales should sound like. And in the beginning, I know when I did this, even with my very first implant, the first several months was really rough because I didn't want all the notes to sound the same. But I think between periodic mapping and daily practice with the piano, my brain was responding to musical stimuli, and eventually the timbre and the pitch of playing scales became more realistic. So the other thing I want to say is it is important to find a good cochlear implant audiologist who is willing to work with you to get to the point of having the sounds, have musical sounds sound really good. Y'all notice I put a link on note frequency conversions. You don't have to learn to convert note names into frequencies because most audiologists are generally not trained in musical acoustics. And, and if you play a band or orchestral instrument, please bring your instrument to the clinic because it will probably provide the audiologist some idea of exactly where your troubles are. All right, next slide, please. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the organization I found for adult musicians with hearing loss. Most people don't know that SHHH and HOAA provided an impetus, impetus and momentum in starting this group. About 3 to 4 years after getting my first implant, I felt restless. I would hear that understanding human speech was essential to the survival of the human race, and music was just not that important, and I didn't like hearing that. And then in 2001, I attended the SHHH convention. I attended the SHHH convention in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Okay. And one of the workshops I attended featured a presentation by 2 teachers. One teacher talked about how she taught deaf and hard of hearing children music in the elementary school setting. And the other one discussed how she taught dance to these children. These experiences made me feel just because we are grown up, we aren't chopped liver, and we have to change the conversation about hearing loss so that the hearing healthcare industry understands that making music as well as listening to music is an important part of what makes us human. I started this group as a mailing list on Yahoo in 2001, but by 2004, I have found enough individuals willing to help me turn this into a nonprofit organization. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you see our mission and our vision. I have to say that in the 20 years we've been in existence, I've been very, very happy to see opportunity become realities. And for me, it's been very exciting. So moving to the next slide. Okay. The second edition of our book can be purchased from Amazon in either a Kindle or a paperback format. Our 2-day conference in 2015 had about 30 individuals coming mostly from the East Coast, but a few flew in from the Midwest. It was really nice. We had an amateur recital, and then we also a recital featuring amateur musicians. And then we also had a recital that was open to the public that featured the professional musicians in our group. I also presented a session on how hearing loss affected your hearing, your musical instrument of choice. Like if you grew up young and you were told to choose an instrument in the third or fourth grade, then you have to decide which instrument to play. And sometimes some people would go to audiologists, or they would just think by themselves what would be easiest on the year. So we had this very long discussion about that. Okay, next slide, please. While I'm not happy, we did not have an opportunity to perform in person at the 2020 HOAA convention. We have put this time to good use by learning how to produce virtual online concert. We did our first holiday concert on December 4th, and we have an upcoming Happy Birthday to Beethoven concert on next Friday on December 18th in the evening. So let's move on to the next page, and the next screen, and I can show you how to get to our online presence. So we have a public Facebook page, and usually I note on the public Facebook page information about upcoming events, including our upcoming concert. So that's where you would go to find out about our upcoming event and to register. I did try something for our holiday concert on December 4th, which was to put information about the concert on the HOAA community group on Facebook. And I have to thank all the people who were so enthusiastic and actually came. That I think gave me a shot of confidence that, yeah, people are going to enjoy online concerts, at least while we're all cooped up in our houses. The last entry on this screen is for individuals who are not on social media, but would like to participate in our discussions. I should say though that our Facebook group is more active than the private email group at this time. Next screen, please. Okay, so we are a national affiliate of Walk for Hearing, and we also participate in Walk for Hearing ourselves. So the next time you have Walk for Hearing and you would like to put in some contribution for us, we are listed in the drop-down menu for national affiliates. Okay, and I do want to say, if there are any chapter leaders here, feel free to send an email to us and ask and to let me know if you would like brochures about our organization, because we do have brochures that are available. I would just need a mailing address to send the brochures. Okay, next slide, please. So I put in some musical clips that you could enjoy. Once Carla is able to send the slide deck to anybody who wants them, I don't see any other way of people being able to view the YouTube by themselves. But I have to say, the first video clip is special. This audience is going to be the first person to be seeing it. This is my submission for our Beethoven concert next week. I want to talk a little bit about Jennifer Castellano. She is a fine pianist who also has vision loss in addition to hearing loss. And when you listen to her performance for Great Balls of Fire, you're going to smile, because that's what it made me feel. So we did our first in-person concert, which attracted a lot of people at a 2016 HOAA convention. A delegation from Japan came, and 2 of them were musicians. So we had them perform for us at the end of our performance. Next slide, please. Okay, I think I see that there are 4 questions in the Q&A. And oh my God, I got so many questions here. Okay.
Um,
So let's
I think
so this
Amanda's going to help you answer the questions. She'll read the questions for you and you can answer if you'd like. Okay.
that's awesome. Okay,
Yes,
so
thank you so much.
Amanda.
Yes, thank you so much, Wendy. The first question is, if the Select works for quartet rehearsals, do you use any special assistive technology during quartet performances?
Well, I have never performed. The last time I performed for in a quartet was at a orchestra at a music workshop for amateur adult string players, and we didn't have a stage. So, oh, so what you're saying, if it's other people are performing quartet, is that right? So if other people are performing quartets, usually I will bring in my smaller one. If it's an informal group and I'm going to be seated I'm going to be among the audience as opposed to performing, then, and I will probably use one of these assistive listening devices to hear, assuming the venue does not have any loop systems. I hope that answers the question. So I answered that live.
Thank you. And it
Okay.
sounds like they want to get the links to your mobile apps, which we can provide. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to say that I included the link in the slide deck. Be advised that the links for the slide deck usually takes you to the company link. It does not take you to the App Store link, because I know both Tempo and Tunable, they are available in both the Android as well as the Apple store. So, right. Okay. So anyway, so that I think if
I
the
can read the
slide
next
could,
one. Keeping pitch right must be challenging with the viola, even with normal hearing, I would imagine. Do your CIs accurately present pitch? So we'll start with that question.
well, that's a good question. Staying in pitch is always a challenge, and I think my implants have provided enough information that I know if I'm playing with somebody else. If I'm playing with somebody else, I know when my pitch is off. Yeah, I just don't know how to fix it without the tuner next to me. Okay, so so that's why I use tunable nearly every day, trying to build muscle memory. And also, so to me, it's a combination of my implant, which is not always reliable, the tunable app, is the tape on the fingerboard, and and knowing exactly where my fingers should be. One thing you need to know is with orchestral string instrument, all the four strings are called open strings. That you don't, in other words, your finger is not on those strings, so it's called open strings. So almost every octave of the four strings, they will resonate. So, for example, I think on a viola, you have four strings, which are A, D, G, and C. So any octave of those four notes, they just ring. And they just ring, and I can hear the ringing. The technical term is called sympathetic ringing. And because I can hear the sympathetic ringing for a lot of these open string octave, it also helps me. So I hope that explains it. So Paul, next, all right. So keep going, Amanda.
So you answered, okay. So from an implant listener point of view, how do you deal with the physical limitation of limited ability to hear different frequencies?
I think, I actually think you have to find your new normal when it comes to listening music. If you find, for example, sometimes it depends on, and I know some people don't want to hear that. They have to listen, they have to adjust to a new normal. And I think, I sort of I sort of count my blessings that I can hear as much as I can, but I have to admit there are times when I get a little bit frustrated that I cannot hear the lower notes. Any notes that are more than an octave below middle C, I can hear them, I can tell the notes apart. So that I know is frustrating. And I've heard of people who are cellists and string bass players who got an implant and found out that the implant robbed their ability to hear the lower frequencies. So I often think you try to make lemonade with what you have. uh, I've often thought if my implant did not improve pitch perception to the point that I could not play melodic instrument and I had to stick with rhythmic instrument like percussion, I will learn to live with that. So that's my answer.
Great. And can you provide your organization's YouTube channel? I'll have either Carla or Tim provide it in the chat
Okay, that would be good.
so people can access it. And then next question. Do you have recommended resources for a late deafened adult with cochlear implants to enjoy listening to tonal music?
Actually, we don't, but I may just go. But that could be a possible project for our website. So thank you for suggesting that. Maybe what we'll do is do something like listening, like every month of a new after activation. What might be good pieces of music to try out? Yeah. That is definitely a worthwhile project. Then perhaps my group will take up. All right, I hope that answers the question.
Next one. Do you use any ear training software after getting implanted?
Well, I could have, but I don't know how helpful ear training software are if what I'm doing right now is I'm learning to hear intervals, okay, which in interval, for those of you who don't know, is a distance between one note to a second note. And in music, if when you are learning to play a musical instrument, eventually you'll be asked to learn about intervals. So right now I'm looking at software to develop my ability to hear intervals. So, and I have to say, sometimes it's frustrating because while I'm able to match pitch on the piano with my voice, if you give me one note and tell me to identify it, I couldn't do that because I have noticed that my identification are usually half step apart. In other words, it's very close to the note, but a lot of time it's not the actual notes. Okay.
Great, yeah, and people keep asking questions, which is great. Is it possible to see the slide with all the links we can visit? I think we will provide the links for everyone. And next question, how do you handle mistakes that you might make on your viola?
Well, I'm trying very hard not to make a face when I'm recording myself and I'm playing, I made a mistake. But, you know, what I try to do a lot is to work through, if I have a difficult passage, for example, where I need to play fast passages, I play them until my fingers know this stuff from memory, and so I try not to make mistakes that way. Okay, so that is my answer for that.
Great, and you mentioned loops. What is your experience with hearing loops?
Well, every time we have performed at the HLAA convention, we insisted that the venue be looped. And I have to say it's awesome to be performing on a stage that is looped, because I don't have to worry about my own assistive listening devices. If you have a microphone looped to this, connected to the loop system on the piano, and also connected to that's close to and a microphone that's close to my viola, I know it's just so wonderful. I love playing in venues that have loops. Okay, so Michael and Jonathan's answer. So I answer both Michael and Jonathan's answers. Okay.
Yes. So, all right. I'm a classically trained pianist and bilateral. I would love to try playing a piano concerto on my digital piano. Do you know if there is a recording of an orchestra without a piano and I can fill in the piano parts while listening to the orchestra recording?
Well, I know there's something like Music -1, which is often available for string players, and I'm sure there is possibly a equivalent for pianists. So if you email me, I can look that up, and just go to our website and email me, and I'll get back to you on that.
Perfect. Do you find you have to practice more than hearing people to get the sound to stick in your brain better? I know I'm terrible with recognizing melodies, so I don't know if it's me or my hearing.
Well, Adam, welcome to the club. I have to say I'm similar to that, because if I'm listening to music I have never heard before, I usually don't. I usually listen to it like 10 times just to develop that feel for the melody and the contour of the music. So it's what we call melodic contours, where you know where the notes are rising or falling. So yes, I have to practice more, especially if I don't have the sheet music in the front of me. I have to practice more. I hope that answers your question, Adam.
All right. Can you feel the vibrations of the notes you can't hear?
It depends on how low they are. I noticed that the lower notes, the vibrations are stronger, and for the higher notes, the vibrations are weaker. So it varies. Next question.
Is there anything for dancers like ballroom dancing that you know?
Well, personally, I have known 1 or 2 ballroom dancers who have hearing loss, and I know there are a couple of ballet dancers who have hearing loss, and I actually think dancers have a more difficult time, because when you dance, you're all over the place. You absolutely need some form of assistive technology for this to work. So that's my comment for dancers. Okay, next one.
Does your experience with other performers with CIs suggest that some brands are better at providing more accurate representations of the lower scales?
I don't know. That's a very good question. In our organization, we have cochlear implants users and musicians from all 3 brands, and I don't know that any of these could say that any of them have told me that my brand has helped me hear the scales at the lower octaves better. But that's a very good question. Yeah.
Do pitch difficulties affect your playing with others? If so, how do you handle it?
Well, I think pitch difficult, usually, this is one reason I haven't gotten into orchestra playing, because I know I can tell when I'm out of tune. I don't want to have annoying people if I'm playing out of tune. So I don't go into orchestral situations very much. I usually think, well, so I'm playing at a high level in my private lessons, but if I'm playing with an orchestra, then I usually play in the orchestra that is playing at a lower level. So nobody will mind too much. It's one of those friendly orchestras where they won't mind too much if you're slightly out of tune once or twice. Next one.
I listen to organ music at church, and it always sounds like a minor key and no melody. What might be going on there?
Well, I can't answer that because one of the thing about hearing loss, it's a lot of time people come to an organization, they say, I don't hear well anymore, and musical pitch sounds terribly out of tune, and if you sound like a minor key, no melody, I have to say that usually the one effect of hearing loss is when music doesn't sound like music because you lose your ability to hear pitch accurately. So, and I'm not sure there are any remedies to actually fix the problem, and without, I don't know, I have no way of telling you what might be going on except to say I'm pretty sure it's due to hearing loss because pitch distortion is a large effect of significant hearing loss. Next one.
All right, I am deaf in my left ear since May 2020 and play violin.
Okay.
It is challenging because I can't hear my instrument like I used to. I haven't tried to play an orchestra or group setting yet. What would you recommend I do now to help my brain to adjust? I am not a candidate for CI.
That's a very tough one because if you're deaf, okay, yeah, if you're deaf in your left ear, that means you are not hearing anything in the left ear and the sound is coming from the right side of you. So perhaps one possibility might be to get one of those hearing aids. So it's called contralateral signal, but it's called a cross, CROS. And it allows you to, it routes sound coming over from the opposite side of the ear to the side that you can hear well. And I think that might be a possibility if you can wear hearing aids. But the other thing I would suggest you to do is develop muscle memory. Develop how much whole step and half step feel. Develop how intervals of third, fourth, sixth feel when you play them, and use tunable. And use tunable. I've used tunable ever since I started learning orchestral strings, and it has been a big help. Okay, next one.
What is the most difficult part of making music with hearing loss?
I think the most difficult part is knowing that you love music so much, but you also eventually will want to share with the audience who has better hearing than you. So that means you work as hard as possible to create a beautiful sound. I hope that helps. That's my answer.
The next two are not questions, but they're nice notes to you. I had a beautiful Boston Dorger Grand that I sold. I have tried digital pianos, but I don't like the sound or the feel. Do you think an upright piano would be better than a digital keyboard?
Well, it depends on the person because I know the timbre of digital and analog are different, and I think it all depends on what you want to do with the piano. If you just want to play, you're probably fine with an upright piano, but the digital keyboard allows you to modify volume. Once you can, if a digital keyboard allows you to plug in audio straight to your hearing device, you can do that. But if you want to go to composing, you almost need a digital keyboard. But if you just want to play, and then you probably could buy one of those assistive listening devices where you could place the transmitter right on the piano. And if you prefer that, I would go with the upright.
Thank you. Is there a list of mapping audiologists with experience with working with late deaf musicians?
Well, that's Well, I don't know of any such list. But we do have some very knowledgeable audiologists in our group that can provide suggestions. And I know that Dr. Ingro, who I mentioned earlier, he's on our board and he's willing to work with your audiologist, or I think he might be willing to talk to other audiologists to help them provide better service to cochlear implant musicians.
All right, here's a question. For an adult with almost severe hearing loss and using a hearing aid on both ears, do you have any ideas for the challenges of hearing live orchestral music in a large concert hall? Either general hints or with any apps, and in regard to both tone quality and pitch perception.
That's a very, very good question, and I can't really answer that, but I will do my best. So I think if you're using a hearing aid in both ears, you almost need to hear the full sound of the orchestra. Have your hearing aids optimized to use assistive listening devices. Hopefully the venue has assistive listening device or a loop system, because a lot of the time the amount of distance between you and the sound source is going to affect how well you're going to hear pitch and timbre. So I think you almost have to go to a venue that has assistive listening device. But in this time of pandemic, where most people are cuckooing or quarantining at home, you could always go to many of the stream concerts that a lot of musical organizations are offering, and just hear directly from your computer. So I think that's also something else. Of course, we hope the pandemic will be over and we could go to concerts eventually. But in terms of concerts, I almost think you have to go to a venue that has some sort of assistive listening that works well with your hearing device. Thank you.
Can you talk more about the levels of playing?
The levels of playing?
So yeah, in the
I can't remember the correct name of the levels of playing, so I have to go back to that. All right. Sorry about that. Amy, I'll answer you off list later, okay? Sorry about that. Okay. All right.
Would you be able
So
to an audiologist that can do mapping and is familiar with music perception? That's very important to me.
Well, I like my audiologist at Hopkins, but I went to my original audiologist for cochlear implant mapping was at Hopkins. I believe he's still there. If you can email me privately, I'll get you that information also.
I could not hear music for 41 years until I got my first CI, and then my second one 11 years later. My music memory stayed with me, and I'm able to enjoy music very much with my CIs. I was a singer until the age of 21. Would you know why? Do you remember music better than lyrics?
Actually, I don't. Sorry about that. I do not. But I think for those of us who learn music in childhood, I think our musical memory just stays in our life because it's just the way our brain works, and we learn melodic contour and pitch and timbre at such an early age. I think it stays with us. I think learning melody is easier than learning lyrics, because lyrics always change with every iteration of a song, but melody always remains the same. Okay.
And the last few are just comments. So that is all the questions.
Okay, I actually have a question for Wendy. I have a couple of
Mhm.
questions actually. Um, Wendy, what is your favorite thing to play? What genre do you like to play the most of?
Uh, well, I like playing classical, but I also think classical is the hardest because usually people who play classical music, the audience who play classical music have extremely high standards. So, so unless, so usually when I play classical music for an audience who is very well versed in the music, I almost think I hope they are a friendly audience, or I hope they are a forgiving audience. Okay, but I do also enjoy playing hymns and Christmas melodies and things like that. I guess because of my classical training, I will never see myself playing in a rock band. So
Since you happen to be in the Washington, D.C. area, is there any, have you participated with any local organizations musically?
one day I will. I just want to get myself to playing at a level where I can successfully audition for any of these orchestras. And so this past summer, I tried the level 5 exam for viola that the Canada's Royal Conservatory of Music did. And I'm looking at level 6 right now, but anyway, so I'm looking at level 6 right now, but I know to play in a local orchestra, you either have to be at level 6 or 7 at the very least. And so I'm not quite there, but maybe in the next 5 years. That's really one of my goals.
Well, I do think that from what I've seen of your performances on your website, I think they're pretty good. I know not the normal person can do what you're doing, so I think you're very brave to do what you do. And I think considering you have a hearing loss, I just can't imagine the combinations that you're trying to make to play a decent piece. And it's I'm going to be very happy to share the recording from the December 4th performance and share your performance at the end of this presentation. I guess, were there any uh, collaborations over the years from the organization, from the association that you particularly enjoyed?
Okay, so I really liked it when HOA first allowed us to perform at their convention in 2016. They were really good about publicizing the concert, um, and I think in let's see, and I know that in the 2019 concert they actually put it in the program, so that was really awesome. Um, I have not worked with any other organizations, but one of the things I'm hoping to do is publicize the organization a little bit more. I'm in the process of doing a personal essay, and I hope to submit it to a national news organization, maybe like the New York Times, because they have a section for on disability. So I thought they might be interested in that, and we'll see what happens. I'm very good with IT, but I have to confess that marketing and publicity are my weak points. So so I just do what I can.
Yeah, I think you're a young nonprofit, so I think that I can understand that. I mean, it's all volunteers. You're all volunteers in the organization, right? Much like HLAA, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so definitely encourage you to write for the Hearing Life magazine if you do happen to have a submission for that. So
Yeah, Cindy and I are working on that also.
I guess the other thing I was wondering about was the scholarships that you mentioned in your presentation. Are you offering scholarships as well?
Well, that was something we tried last year before the pandemic hit. And we thought there were probably musicians who would enjoy the opportunity to perform at HOAA but didn't have the funds to attend HOAA. And I thought, well, if we could raise funds to send one musician besides whoever else is able to afford the trip there, that might generate interest. And that's what we did.
That's great. That's great. I think, do you also work with, do you also mentor young kids by chance?
Well, I don't know. In terms of young kids, this is a sensitive spot with me because I think, I tend to think other organizations that work with young kids should take this up because they know how to work with kids. I do have 2 daughters, but working with other kids instead of your 2 daughters are two different things. So I feel like I want to make sure, I do want to make sure that adults don't see, there's always this feeling that if you don't learn music as a child, you're never going to get that chance, and that's another reason I want to focus on adults, because I want to tell people it's never too late to learn music. And that's one reason I generally don't look at mentoring kids, although there have been other people in our group who think you should mentor kids more. But I think that is a whole major area that requires more work. Yeah, a lot of work.
I think it's nice to know that you can constantly challenge yourself, is what you're saying. And that's nice to hear, because I know a lot of people gave up trying to do that instrument learning in school and gave it up once they left school. So it's nice to hear that you're encouraging people to keep pursuing that hobby if they wish to pursue it. So that's great. I guess we don't have any more questions for you, Wendy. I think you covered them all, which is fantastic. I can't thank you enough for your wonderful presentation today. And I also need to thank Deanna Baker for her excellent card services. This presentation is being recorded and will be posted to the hearingloss.org website. And we'll also provide the presentation with the link information as well. So I think please check hearingloss.org for future webinars and for our past recordings. And as I mentioned, we will be showing a presentation of Wendy's Christmas concert, her portion of that concert, as we leave today. Again, I thank you all for joining us today, and please enjoy your holiday ahead. Please stay safe and be well, and we hope you have a good day.